In Palestine, the United Nations denounced that Israeli restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid amounts to a deliberate starvation tactic. In Venezuela, over 2 million citizens will be part of the Great Volunteering for the Future project, a space to guarantee the participation of communities in government plans. And in Cuba, the third Patria International Symposium concludes this Wednesday. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from TeleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The United Nations denounced that Israeli restrictions on the entry of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip may amount to a deliberate starvation tactic, which could constitute a war crime. This was stated on Tuesday by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, when referring to the risk of a famine in the Palestinian enclave. He also pointed out that Israel, as the occupying power, has the obligation to guarantee the supply of food and medical care to the population. The statement came a day after United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres noted that more than half of the 1.1 million Gazans are on the brink of starvation. Meanwhile, the population of the Gaza Strip waits for long hours to get some food.
We wait for our shift for 5, 6, 7 hours, and we don't get enough. The situation is difficult and tragic. There is no food. There is no money. The situation is deteriorating. We have to form a patrol to support us and distribute rice, flour, sugar, canned food, and everything. We are lost.
In this context, the General Commissioner of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philippe Lazzarini, gave a press conference after Israel denied his entry to the Gaza Strip. The official pointed out that half of the population is going through a catastrophic level of hunger.
Basically, the population of Gaza is now dependent on food assistance, but we have more than half the population today which are living in what is qualified catastrophic level of hunger, which means that people now are about to enter into a stage of...
Lazzarini also asserted that the hunger crisis affecting more than 2 million people in Gaza Strip was created by Israel.
Already 2 months into the siege, we were warning that hunger is spreading in Gaza. And hunger is spreading in a place which before never ever encountered hunger. So this is clearly a man-made, man-made, artificially created hunger crisis impacting more than 2.2 million people.
The Canadian Parliament passed a non-binding motion calling on the international community to work toward a two-state solution to resolve the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. According to the news agency Reuters, the vote had been delayed by a last-minute wrangling over one wording supporting Palestinian statehood, an idea that looked set to deepen splits inside the ruling Liberal Party. The amended motion was passed by 204 votes to 117 against, after most of the Liberal cabinet and caucus voted in favor. The initial version called on Canada to officially recognize the state of famine, a step that no member of the group of 7 industrialized nations has taken. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now we go live to the Patria International Symposium in the Exhibition Center Pavesco in Havana, Cuba, where press authorities in Cuba will award El Maestro Prize to the multimedia platform TeleSUR. The prize will be received by the president of this news media, Patricia Villegas. Let's see.
Y a Patricia Villegas,
At this
periodista fundadora
Patricia
y por varios años
Villegas
ya
is receiving
presidenta de
the
la
prize
prestigiosa multiplataforma TeleSUR.
in the
Se
hands
le
of
concede la más alta condecoración que otorga la Unión de Periodistas de Cuba a sus profesionales del periodismo, considerando sus indiscutibles méritos como periodista y como líder de un proyecto de comunicación que ha sabido cumplir con creces los sueños de sus creadores al servicio de la verdad,
At this moment,
y la emancipación de los pueblos de nuestra
Patricia
América
Villegas
y de todo
is
el sur
receiving
del
the
mundo.
prize
La
in the
medalla Félix
hands of
Hermosa
high authorities of the island and the press. Patricia Villegas is receiving the medal in the hands of the president of the Union of Journalists of Cuba, Ricardo Ronquillo Bello. TeleSUR is a Latin American news television network, headquarters in Caracas,
¿quién nos recuerda a esta
Venezuela.
niña, la primera que nos mató de celos cuando entrevistó a Chávez en la primera emisión de TeleSUR? Tienes la palabra.
Patricia Villegas is taking the stand. She's thanking Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel.
Me hicieron una emboscada. Yo sabía que iban a hacerle un reconocimiento a TeleSUR, pero no sabía que me iban a honrar con esta distinción que verdaderamente la recibo con mucho orgullo, me conmueve, y la recibo, por supuesto, en nombre de todos los trabajadores y trabajadoras de TeleSUR, que en todas partes del mundo, pero de manera muy especial en Cuba y en Venezuela, han sorteado todas las dificultades. Hemos llegado a trabajar caminando, hemos llegado a trabajar porque no hay energía eléctrica, porque no hay gasolina, porque no hay, pero tiene que salir la señal y tienen que contarse las historias, y estamos siempre en la primera línea de batalla y seguiremos estando allí. Es para ellos, es por ellos.
We were live from the Patria International Symposium, where authorities, press authorities and Cuban authorities offered a prize to the multimedia news media TeleSUR, received by the president of the news media, Patricia Villegas. In other order of informations, we are going to Venezuela now, where President Nicolas Maduro announced the creation of a great movement of volunteers with more than 2 million of enlisted members. The organization stands for a plan of transformation seeking to guarantee main aspects in the Venezuelan society. The 7 main work fields of the volunteers would be focused into modernizing the economy and achieving and maintaining full independence and peace. The organization will work also for the preservation of national and territorial security, as well as the upkeep of social, political, ecological, and geopolitical integrity. The head of state swore in the community, municipal, state, and regional promotional teams that will accompany him in the construction of the transformations of the future of Venezuela over the years until 2030 and beyond. On Wednesday, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil, through his account on the social network X, announced that Venezuela strongly rejects the unfounded accusations and lies issued by the false and shameful International Factfinding Mission in its recent presentation to the Human Rights Council of the United Nations in Geneva. In this way, the Venezuelan government emphasized that these accusations, once again, violate all the principles of the United Nations Charter in order to continue trying to promote the failed policy of regime change instructed by the United States of America. He also reiterated that Venezuela advocates sovereignty and non-interference in internal affairs. In Colombia, the former paramilitary leader Salvador Mancuso gave an exclusive interview with journalist Holman Morris for the RTVC network, where he spoke about his role in favor of reconciliation and his commitment to peace in the country after serving a 16-year sentence in the United States.
My life has been invested in the violent contrast of war. Peace means for me the opportunity for redemption. I pass towards the reconstruction of what was destroyed, not only in material terms, but also in the social tissue and in the salvation of Colombians. The Mancuso of today is a person transformed by the experience of war. I am committed to the creation of a peaceful future through my involvement in spaces of reconciliation, dialogue. I seek to be an actor of change, not of revenge.
Likewise, Mancuso offered his perspective regarding the role of former President Alvaro Uribe in his extradition process, indicating him to have intensified the conflict in Colombia during his management.
It's not important to me, nor do I come with a mood of revenge, of retaliation, because he extradited me. I come with the encouragement, the confidence, the commitment to turn the page. I'm not interested in Uribe, and I think the country is not interested in Uribe either, because Uribe was not a friend of peace, a friend of reconciliation. On the contrary, his democratic security policy perpetuated the conflict. 6,000 people missing or murdered with false positives during his government. Think of all these difficult situations that were experienced. Then, it does not contribute to peace. And what is important today is peace, reconciliation, turning the page, because it is not important for us.
In Cuba, the third Patria International Symposium concludes this Wednesday. Communicators and leaders discuss the possibility of a new world order for information and communication. The event welcomes more than 100 guests from 30 countries and seeks to consolidate digital political communication and sovereign development of technologies that promote communication progress in nations. The Patria International Symposium also seeks to broaden new horizons on the eve of the digitalized global order, protected by an already limited mass communication culture, but with other approaches to promote the development of ideas. The conference, Communication and Journalism from the Global South, Possibilities of an Alternative Press, is planned for the closing day. In Cuba, during the third day of the Patria International Colloquium, the president of TeleSUR, Patricia Vass, ratified the ideal for the creation of the multi-platform of information compromised with the reality of the Latin American people.
How TeleSUR was born. It was born in the year 2005, and it was born as a traditional television. That is what we're going to do from the South, from our Latin America. An idea from Fidel, an idea from Commander Chavez, two great promoters of this television station. We have to be able to generate our own history, not to go against it, but to generate our own story, to build a media network for real that summon us, unite us, allow us to spread our ideas, strength and structures.
During her speech, Patricia Vass pointed out that despite the reality faced by TeleSUR due to the economic blockades against the countries that support the multi-platform, the channel has been reborn to bring reality to the countries of the world.
When TeleSUR turns 18 years old, what has happened with these partners? What has happened with the sponsors? What has happened with the countries that promote it? Cuba blocked for 65 years, Venezuela blocked, Nicaragua blocked, and a coup d'etat in Bolivia. That is the political reality of the countries that support this communication effort. Latin America and the Caribbean, and the hard years of resistance. We are now moving on to one hand resisting and the other advancing. As we are advancing now is an opportunity for the media of the Global South, which means that all that we have done, which is our museum, our medals, Our diplomas of honor that we have won, we have to leave it, hanging on the wall or keep it in a trunk of memories and be reborn.
In the context of the Patria Symposium in Havana, the Minister for Communication and Information of Venezuela, Freddy Ñañez, was interviewed by TeleSUR. Let's listen to his statements.
Es una escuela. 100 hombres y mujeres que han reflexionado y que
This Patria Symposium is a school. 100 men and women who have reflected and who come from complete practices to build a liberating communication. They gather here to exchange knowledge, experiences, and above all, to articulate and build what should be a Latin American movement, a Sud-Sud movement where we can face the new challenges of communication, challenges that go through the need to be organized and to correctly interpret the time we are living in, the time of social networks, the information age, the time that also poses political challenges, ethical challenges, and cultural challenges.
Venezuela's Minister for Communication and Information, Freddy Ñañez, also spoke about how the media have brought to light the war that Israel has perpetrated against the people of Palestine.
This is the first war, the first extermination, the first genocide that is transmitted in real time through social networks, and yet exposing the truth of a people massacred by a racist, extremist, and spurious regime, such as the Zionist regime. The world remains in inaction, instead of motivating indignation and the activation of international law. The Western world has remained inactive.
El mundo occidental se ha quedado en la inacción.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected at the Inform with TeleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Vietnam, President Vo Van Thuong resigned following accusations of irregularities during his administration. The Central Committee of the Communist Party considers that the conduct of the former president has tarnished the reputation of the political organization and therefore accepted his resignation. Vo Van Thuong assumed power in March 2023 following the departure of President Nguyen Xuan Phuc for the corruption scandals during the pandemic. The United States Supreme Court on Tuesday ruled in favor of Texas' anti-immigrant law, which allows police to detain and expel migrants. In this way, the state law allows any Texas police officer to detain migrants suspected of entering the country irregularly and empowers judges to order their expulsion from the United States. Known as SB 4, the rule was upheld after the conservative majority court rejected an emergency request by the Joe Biden administration that states do not have the authority to legislate on immigration. The decision is not final, and a lower court will continue to review the legality of the rule, but it is possible that the case could return to the Supreme Court for a final ruling. In Mexico, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alicia Bárcena qualified a Texas law that would allow state police to arrest and deport migrants who cross illegally from Mexico into the United States as xenophobic and discriminatory.
It is an anti-migrant, xenophobic, discriminatory law that says that any migrant or any person moving anywhere in Texas can be detained by the authorities and put in jail or deported. I believe that the most important thing is to tell you that we have a strategy for human mobility. Mexico has a unique model. There is no other country that is at the same time a country of origin, transit, destination, and return. That's who we are.
Polish farmers on Wednesday staged tractor blockades on roads nationwide in their latest protest against farm imports from outside the European Union and the bloc's environmental red tape. Farmers have been blocking border crossings with Ukraine since last month to protest what they consider unfair competition from goods coming in from neighboring Ukraine. In this regard, the Polish police said in a statement that more than 580 protests are planned across the country, with an estimated 70,000 people expected to participate. On Wednesday, European Union member states and lawmakers reached an agreement to limit duty-free imports of some Ukrainian grain. Olympic officials announced on Tuesday that Russian and Belarusian athletes competing in this summer's Paris Games under a neutral flag would not be allowed to participate in the opening ceremony.
Decision relating to the opening and closing ceremony, the decision was unanimous. The logic was very clear to us in that the individual neutral athletes will be competing as individuals. And so, as you know, during an opening ceremony, the athletes parade as delegations or teams. And since there won't be a delegation or a team, that was the main.
In this regard, the Russian government indicated that they demand from the International Olympic Committee a clear and unequivocal rejection of the practice of double standards, the strict application to all athletes without exception of an equal approach without discrimination on any grounds. Thus, Russia insists on the restoration of the rights of all Russian and Belarusian athletes who have suffered from the selective politicization of the international sporting agenda by the committee. In the meantime, Russian authorities emphasize that the International Olympic Committee's actions towards Russia and Belarusian athletes are initially dictated by considerations of discrimination and segregation on a political, national and ethnic basis. Now we move on to the world of sports, because on Wednesday in South Korea was the opening day of the Major League Baseball in a challenge between two rivals from cities on the west coast of the United States, the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers. In this way, the baseball season began as part of an international series, this time in Seoul, where two MLB teams will play 2 games. It is worth noting that both teams have in their rosters the presence of players from Asia, such as Japanese star Shohei Ohtani and the Korean Ha-seong Kim, along with recognized players also from Latin America, Canada and the United States. Precisely in the opening day, with a crowd of 15,952 inside the stadium and almost the same amount outside, the favorite team this year to win it all, Los Angeles Dodgers defeated San Diego Padres with a comeback win by a final score of 5-2. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.